Silence. That was Earth's only answer when the Galactic Council demanded a response. Across the stars, the other civilizations whispered among themselves, mocking the blue planet that had once seemed so full of potential. Primitive, they said, unworthy of the stars. When Earth stopped sending delegates, stopped attending meetings, stopped even replying to transmissions, the galaxy laughed. They believed humanity had fallen silent because they were afraid, because they had realized they didn't belong among the great empires of the cosmos. But silence has a strange power. Sometimes it's not weakness. Sometimes it's the quiet before the storm. For years, the Council's worlds carried on without Earth. Trade routes were redrawn, alliances shifted, and the humans became nothing more than a footnote in history, a curious species that burned bright for a short while and then vanished into obscurity. Their colonies were left abandoned, their research outposts gone dark. Even the closest allies of humanity stopped asking questions after a while. It was easier that way. After all, no one wanted to admit they had once feared humans. No one wanted to remember how humanity had turned the tide in the Orion conflicts, or how their strange mix of empathy and savagery had terrified their enemies and inspired their friends. Time passed, and the galaxy forgot. But Earth hadn't. Far from the prying eyes of the Council, humanity had gone quiet for a reason. The silence wasn't retreat, it was preparation. Deep beneath the planet's surface, in black sites that didn't appear on any galactic registry, engineers and scientists were working tirelessly. They studied alien weapons, reverse-engineered forbidden technologies, and built ships that defied every known law of physics. Humanity had stopped talking because they had started building. The Council mocked them during those years. The broadcasts were cruel, filled with smug laughter and false pity. The humans were never ready for interstellar politics, one alien commentator said during a public session. Their emotions make them unstable. Their aggression makes them dangerous. It is better they remain silent. The chamber had erupted in laughter, echoing across the star systems through millions of hollow feeds. None of them knew that those very words had been recorded and replayed endlessly on Earth as a reminder. Every insult became fuel. Every mockery became a spark. Generations later, the galaxy had grown arrogant. The Council controlled most of known space, and its fleets patrolled the stars with unchallenged authority. New species were brought into the fold, some willingly, others by force. Yet there was one area no ship dared to enter, the Sol system. Officially, it was labeled Restricted Quarantine Zone. Unofficially, it was haunted. The last expedition that entered its borders never returned. Their signals cut off the moment they crossed Neptune's orbit. The Council assumed the humans had perished or that their world had become inhospitable. But the truth was far stranger. In the quiet darkness beyond Pluto, something vast was moving. Silent, cold, and patient. The story truly began on the day the Council decided to expand again. Their fleets had crushed resistance in the Perseus Arm, and now they sought new territories, ones rich in minerals and rare elements. A vote was cast, and it was decided that the quarantine around Sol would be lifted. "We must reclaim what was lost," declared one of the elder counselors. Humanity's resources should not be wasted on a dead world. They sent scout ships first, small, fast, equipped with the latest stealth systems. The transmissions they sent back were strange, static, interference, sometimes whispers, then nothing. The Council sent a larger fleet, convinced that the silence was due to magnetic anomalies or technical failure. When the fleet reached the edge of the system, they saw something impossible. Earth wasn't dead. It was glowing. Massive orbital structures circled it like metallic moons. The planet's surface shimmered with energy fields and colossal cities that reached through the clouds. The fleet commander, an old veteran who had fought beside humans once, realized what he was seeing. "They've been building," he whispered, his voice shaking. Moments later, Earth spoke. The transmission was brief. A single human voice filled every frequency in the system. "This territory is no longer open for negotiation." The Council's representatives, watching from the safety of their homeworlds, didn't understand what that meant until the warships appeared. They didn't come from hyperspace. They didn't flicker into existence with warp signatures like normal vessels. They simply emerged, as if the void itself had birthed them. Sleek, angular, wrapped in armor that shimmered like liquid steel, they moved with the precision of predators. The largest of them dwarfed entire council carriers. Their hulls bore no flags, no symbols, only the faint emblem of a blue sphere surrounded by a halo of light. The humans hadn't just returned. They had ascended. The first encounter lasted less than a minute. The council's fleet opened fire. Their plasma bolts evaporated against invisible shields. The human response was silent, no flashy weapons, no explosions. Just beams of light that sliced through ships like they were made of paper. Thousands of years of alien technology crumbled in seconds before humanity's wrath. When the light faded, there was nothing left but debris drifting in the void. The galaxy trembled. News of the battle spread faster than light, and panic swept through the systems. Some refused to believe it. Others began preparing for war. The council called an emergency session, demanding answers. Who authorized the invasion? Why had the humans attacked? But they had forgotten who fired first. They had forgotten who mocked Earth when it fell silent. In the shadows of that council chamber, as the leaders shouted and blamed one another, the screens flickered. A live feed appeared, grainy, distorted, but unmistakable. It was a human face, calm and expressionless. Your council spoke of peace while enslaving worlds, the voice said quietly. You mocked our silence. You mistook restraint for fear. You should have remembered who taught you war. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in dead silence. Outside, fleets across the stars began to move, some toward Earth, some away from it. Old allies reawakened ancient debts. Forgotten colonies swore loyalty again to the homeworld they once abandoned. Across the galaxy, the balance of power was shifting, and for the first time in centuries, the Council realized what true fear felt like. But humanity wasn't seeking revenge. Not yet. Their silence had been a promise, not a threat. They hadn't built those warships to conquer. They built them to ensure no one would ever mock them again. And as the first human fleet spread across the stars, their engines burning brighter than suns, the question on every world was the same. What would the humans do next? Would they demand justice, or would they bring judgment? In that moment, as the council debated and the galaxies watched in terror, one thing became clear. The age of alien dominance was ending. The age of humanity was about to begin, and somewhere, deep in the cold heart of space, another voice whispered through the darkness, soft, almost amused. Let them remember why Earth fell silent. Then the stars themselves seemed to tremble, as the gods of steel prepared to speak again. The council's chambers remained frozen long after the human transmission ended. The silence that followed wasn't just shock, it was fear. For the first time in centuries, the ruling species of the galaxy had no words. The message from Earth had been simple, but it carried a weight that couldn't be ignored. Every word sounded like a warning carved in iron. You mocked our silence. You should have remembered who taught you war. That single line rippled across the stars. On trade stations, people whispered it in disbelief. On frontier colonies, smugglers repeated it like a prophecy. Even among the Council's military fleets, officers played back the footage again and again, trying to convince themselves that what they'd seen wasn't real. Humanity had been gone for so long that they had become more legend than fact. Now those legends had returned, and they were stronger than anyone imagined. But who had rebuilt Earth? How had a species so fractured and divided managed to rise again, unseen by the most powerful civilizations in existence? The Council's intelligence agencies scrambled for answers. Data archives were reopened, old files decrypted, and reports from the past resurfaced. They discovered fragments, rumors of human engineers buying alien tech through back channels, of unmanned probes drifting near restricted sectors, of strange signals pulsing faintly from the void. But none of it explained the scale of what they'd witnessed. Humanity's fleet had appeared not as scavengers or refugees, but as gods of steel, machines of impossible craftsmanship and precision. The truth was buried deep in Earth's history. After the fall of the old alliances, when humanity withdrew from the galactic stage, they faced chaos at home. Nations turned inward. Borders were redrawn. But in that chaos, a silent agreement took shape. Every major power realized that survival meant unity. They didn't sign treaties or build a single government. Instead, they built something greater, a shared dream. Scientists, engineers, and thinkers from every corner of the planet began working together under one purpose: never to be humiliated again. Decades passed and Earth changed. Its cities became vertical fortresses, powered by fusion cores and protected by orbital defense rings. Massive shipyards were constructed around the moon, hidden under the illusion of darkness. Mars, once a colony struggling to breathe, became an industrial heart, the forge of the future fleet. Artificial intelligence systems, carefully monitored and ethically restrained, were developed to assist in research, not dominate it. Humanity didn't rush to expand outward again. Instead, they perfected themselves. They learned patience, the one thing they had always lacked. While the galaxy laughed, humanity listened. While the Council flaunted its power, humanity observed its weaknesses. Every treaty, every military broadcast, every technological showcase, Earth's hidden eyes were watching. Small reconnaissance probes disguised as cosmic debris recorded everything. Data flowed silently back to human space, feeding into a massive system called the ArcNet, a vast intelligence grid that simulated every possible conflict scenario the galaxy could produce. By the time the Council noticed something was wrong, it was already too late. Humanity had outgrown them, not through numbers, but through knowledge. Still, even among humans, not everyone agreed with the silence. Some believed Earth should have returned to the stars peacefully. Others argued that the Council's arrogance would only end in bloodshed. In secret, factions formed within the new human government. One side, called the Vanguard, believed that humanity must show its strength, to remind the galaxy that they were not prey. The other, the Concord, believed in restraint, to reveal power only when absolutely necessary. For years, they existed in tension, balancing aggression with diplomacy, always preparing for the day they would need to act. That day had finally come. Back in the present, fleets across the galaxy began mobilizing. The Council declared an emergency summit, summoning representatives from every member world. The hollow chamber buzzed with noise, dozens of alien voices shouting at once, their tones filled with fear and disbelief. The oldest counselor, a being with a body made of crystal and light, struck the podium with a resonating pulse that silenced them all. "We cannot allow this species to rise unchecked," it said, its voice cold and metallic. "They are unpredictable, dangerous. We gave them knowledge, and they have turned it into weapons. We must respond before they act again." But another voice spoke up, a smaller, trembling figure from a lesser world. "Respond with what? You saw what they did. Our ships didn't even register the attack. It wasn't war, it was extermination." The chamber erupted again. Some demanded peace talks. Others called for an all-out strike. And through all the noise, one fact remained. No one truly understood what humanity wanted. Meanwhile, in the orbit of Jupiter, the human fleet gathered. Hundreds of warships moved in silence, their hulls reflecting the faint light of the sun. They were not like the old ships of humanity's past. They were alive with purpose. Inside the command vessel, known as the Dauntless, officers watched as new signals appeared on the edge of the solar system, Council reinforcements arriving to reclaim what they thought was theirs. The commander stood at the viewport, his face calm, his eyes cold. He had been born decades after Earth's withdrawal, but had been raised on stories of the mockery, the betrayal, and the arrogance of those who once called humans primitive. Now, he commanded a fleet capable of erasing entire worlds. Yet his orders were clear: do not strike unless provoked. Humanity's silence must remain deliberate, not impulsive. Still, as the Council's fleet moved closer, tension filled the command deck. The younger officers whispered, their hands hovering over the controls. The sensors lit up with hundreds of hostile signatures, their energy readings growing stronger by the second. "Sir," one of them said quietly, "they're powering weapons." The commander didn't answer right away. He simply looked out into the void, where the stars shimmered like distant eyes. He knew the Council didn't understand what they were dealing with. To them, this was another show of dominance, a reminder that they still believed themselves untouchable. "Hold position," he finally said. "Let them make the first mistake." The Council fleet opened fire. Bolts of plasma streaked across the void, filling space with violent light. But the human ships didn't move. The energy dissipated harmlessly against invisible barriers. Then, with quiet precision, the Dauntless transmitted a single command through the fleet's network, a pulse of data that echoed like a heartbeat. Instantly, every human ship activated its shields in full synchronization, forming a glowing web across the system. The plasma fire vanished against the shimmering wall of light. Then, one by one, the human ships began to power their main cannons. The energy signatures spiked, far beyond anything the Council had ever recorded. The void itself seemed to bend around them. But before the order to fire could be given, a second transmission arrived from Earth itself. "Stand down," the voice said. "Not yet." The fleet froze. The commander exhaled slowly. Somewhere deep below, on the surface of Earth, the true leaders of humanity were watching. They knew the galaxy was trembling, waiting for them to make the next move. But war wasn't their goal, not yet. Humanity's silence wasn't vengeance, it was control. Back in the Council chambers, panic was spreading. Reports came in of colonies pledging allegiance to Earth, of ships defecting, of entire planets going dark. The balance of power was unraveling faster than anyone could stop it. And yet humanity said nothing. No speeches, no declarations, just silence and the distant, haunting glow of warships that seemed almost divine. The galaxy had mocked Earth for that silence once. Now it realized the truth. Silence wasn't absence. It was the sound of something vast awakening. And as the stars flickered in the depths of space, somewhere between fear and awe, one thought lingered in every mind across the galaxy. If this was only humanity's warning, what would happen when they finally decided to speak? Across the galaxy, rumors about humanity's return spread like wildfire. Every species, from the oldest empires to the smallest colonies, felt the weight of it. The phrase, "Earth is awake," echoed in marketplaces, in military bases, even in children's songs. It wasn't just the shock of humanity's power, it was the realization that they had risen in silence, unnoticed, while the galaxy had grown complacent. The Council tried to control the narrative, claiming that Earth's fleet was an isolated incident, a rogue faction. But no one believed that. Everyone had seen the recordings. The humans didn't act like rebels. They moved like a civilization that had mastered war itself. On the world of Kareth, a frontier mining colony that once traded heavily with humans, people gathered around old screens replaying the battle footage. Among them was an engineer named Terran, who had spent years maintaining outdated equipment the Council no longer cared to upgrade. He watched in silence as the human ships cut through the Council fleet with precision that bordered on surgical. His voice was almost a whisper. They didn't even miss. To him, humanity wasn't just a threat, it was hope. The Council had ruled his planet with iron bureaucracy, stripping its resources and leaving its people struggling. If humans had found a way to defy that power, maybe others could too. While whispers of rebellion spread, the Council tightened its grip. Fleets were mobilized, communication channels monitored, and anyone caught praising Earth's return was labeled a traitor. But the fear only grew stronger, and so did curiosity. Scholars and historians began digging through ancient archives, trying to piece together how humanity had achieved such a transformation. They found old transcripts from before the silence, records of scientists warning the Council about humanity's adaptability, of generals who had once fought beside them and described them as the only species that learns faster under pressure. Those warnings had been ignored, dismissed as paranoia. Now they looked prophetic. Inside the human fleet, tension was also brewing. The officers aboard the Dauntless knew that Earth's restraint couldn't last forever. Every day, Council fleets probed the borders, testing their patience. Aboard the command deck, the atmosphere was thick with unease. The commander's second-in-command, a young strategist known for her sharp intuition, stood beside the main holomap, watching Council signatures multiply on the outskirts of the Sol system. "They're not retreating anymore," she said quietly. "They're surrounding us," The commander didn't respond right away. His gaze was fixed on the transmission logs. Each day brought new messages from outer colonies, old human settlements that had gone dark centuries ago, now flickering back to life. They weren't just watching, they were joining. "They're trying to contain us," he said finally. But the galaxy doesn't realize something yet. Containment only works when the enemy wants to stay inside the cage. Far from the fleet, on Earth's surface, the real decisions were being made. Deep beneath the crust, in a massive subterranean chamber called the Nexus, the leaders of humanity met in secrecy. Holographic projections filled the room, displaying maps of council territories and coded reports from operatives embedded across the stars. These weren't just military leaders, they were scientists, diplomats, and thinkers who had shaped Earth's resurgence. One of them, an older woman with silver hair and eyes that seemed to hold entire worlds within them, spoke with calm authority. "The Council is afraid. That's why they're pushing for confrontation. They want to force our hand before the truth spreads too far," a younger voice replied, tense but measured. "Then maybe it's time to show them what we've built. They mock us as if we're relics, but they don't understand what we've become." The older woman shook her head. "No, not yet. If we strike now, the galaxy will see only destruction. We need them to see the truth first, that humanity is not their enemy, but their mirror. Their fear is proof of what they already know. Our silence is stronger than their noise." Outside the Nexus, on the moon's surface, massive hangars opened, revealing the next phase of Earth's preparations. Colossal constructs, half machine, half fortress, stood ready to deploy. They weren't warships, but carriers of something far more subtle, communication arrays, designed to broadcast across the galaxy without using standard channels. Humanity was preparing to speak again, but not in the way anyone expected. Meanwhile, within the Council, cracks were starting to form. Not everyone agreed with the idea of attacking humanity. Some saw opportunity. A few believed that the humans' rise could benefit the galaxy if diplomacy succeeded. Among them was a diplomat named Saren, who had once worked closely with human envoys decades ago. He remembered their determination, their curiosity, and their strange ability to find common ground, even in chaos. Now, as the Council debated military action, Saren stood before them and spoke with quiet defiance. "We've misjudged them before," he said. "We treated them as equals when it was convenient and as threats when it wasn't. They withdrew because they lost faith in us, not because they were afraid. If we make the same mistake again, there won't be a second chance." His words were met with cold stares. The Council's high members had no interest in compromise. The head counselor, a creature of shimmering blue light, turned to him. "You speak as though you understand them, but they are unpredictable, emotional, and dangerous. Peace with humans is impossible. They will destroy us." Saren met that gaze steadily. "Or maybe they'll show us what we could have been." He was dismissed, his warnings ignored. But later that night, he left the capital and boarded a small transport headed toward the edge of Council space. He wasn't defecting, at least not yet. He wanted answers, and he knew there was only one place he could find them: Sol. Back near Earth, his arrival did not go unnoticed. The Dauntless detected his vessel long before it entered the system. Instead of firing, they sent an escort to bring him in. When he finally stood on the deck of a human ship, the silence that met him was overwhelming. No one spoke. Every step echoed against the cold metal floor, and the humans who walked beside him moved with quiet discipline. He had seen warships before, but these felt different, not built for glory, but for purpose. When he was brought before the commander, he didn't know what to expect. Yet, as he looked into the human's steady eyes, he realized something unsettling. The human wasn't angry. He was tired. "You came a long way," the commander said. "I came to understand," Saren replied. "The Council believes you want war." The commander's voice was calm. "If we wanted war, it would already be over." That silence that followed was heavy. Saren could feel it pressing down on him, the same silence the Council had mocked all those years ago. It wasn't empty. It was filled with restraint. Back in the Council's core worlds, tensions reached a breaking point. Fleets were on full alert, and citizens began to protest the growing fear of humanity. Worlds that had once trusted the Council started questioning its authority. Some demanded peace. Others called for vengeance. The galaxy stood on the edge of chaos, and everyone knew one wrong move would set it ablaze. In the cold expanse between stars, the human fleet waited, silent and immovable. Every system, every weapon, every ship stood ready, but the order never came. Humanity had learned something the Council never could. Real power wasn't in striking first. It was in knowing you could and choosing not to. And yet, even as the two sides teetered on the edge of conflict, something deeper stirred in the background. Strange signals began appearing beyond known space, patterns neither human nor Council could identify. Something ancient was watching, something older than either civilization. For now, it remained unseen, waiting for the first spark of war to light the stars once more. The silence that had once been humanity's shield was beginning to echo back from the void, and soon the galaxy would learn that there were far greater powers than fear. The galaxy stood on the edge of a knife. Every world, every station, and every ship waited for a single decision, one that could decide the fate of all. The Council's fleets were now fully deployed, surrounding the Sol system in a silent siege. Massive warships hung in the void like iron clouds, their weapons primed and ready. But across from them, the human fleet remained motionless, shimmering under the faint light of distant stars. The standoff had lasted days. No one dared to move first. It was a calm that felt more dangerous than any battle. Inside the command deck of the Dauntless, tension hung heavy in the air. Officers whispered in low voices, their faces lit by the cold glow of tactical screens. The commander stood before the main viewport, watching as the enemy ships edged closer with each passing hour. He knew what the Council wanted, to provoke, to push humanity into striking first so they could claim moral victory before the galaxy. But he also knew that patience was humanity's sharpest weapon now. Every second of restraint chipped away at the Council's certainty. Behind him, the strategist leaned over a console, her voice steady but tense. Their lead ships are within 5,000 kilometers. If they move any closer, they'll breach the defense perimeter. The commander didn't look away from the stars. Then we let them come. The closer they are, the clearer the message will be when they see what we've built. Far below, on Earth's surface, the Nexus was alive with activity. Dozens of projections filled the chamber, live feeds from ships, communication intercepts, and energy readings from across the system. The room vibrated faintly as the defense grid began to hum, feeding power into the planetary shields. The silver-haired leader from before watched quietly, her fingers tapping against the edge of the table. "They think we're hesitating," she said softly. "Let them believe it a little longer." Her aide looked nervous. "What if they don't wait? What if they fire first?" She turned her gaze toward the holographic image of the Council fleet. "Then history will remember who lost their patience." Across the galaxy, the tension was spreading. On Council worlds, news broadcasts filled the air with conflicting reports, some claiming humanity was preparing to attack, others insisting the Council's fleets were on a peacekeeping mission. Protests erupted in several systems. Citizens who had once believed in the Council's power began to question its motives. Why were they surrounding Earth? Why was there no communication, no diplomacy? For the first time in centuries, the Council's control began to crack. Meanwhile, on the frontier world of Kareth, Terran the engineer worked in the shadows, secretly repairing an old human-built transmitter buried beneath the mines. The Council had abandoned it long ago, but he knew it still worked. Word had reached Kareth that human ships were returning, and hope flickered in places long thought forgotten. As the machine powered on, the signal it sent wasn't one of distress, it was loyalty. A message to Earth. We remember. Back near Sol, Saren, the former Council diplomat, stood on the Dauntless beside the commander. He had spent days trying to understand the human strategy. Their silence was unnerving. Their readiness was absolute. But what frightened him most was their discipline. There was no arrogance, no chaos, no sign of hesitation. "You're not preparing for an attack," he said quietly. "You're waiting for something." The commander glanced at him. "We're waiting for the truth to reach them. Once it does, we won't need to fire a single shot." Saren frowned. "You think the Council will back down?" "I think fear spreads faster than plasma fire." But not everyone in the Council agreed with restraint. On the flagship Sovereign Light, Admiral Voran watched the human fleet through narrow eyes. His hands twitched over the command console. To him, humans were a stain that had to be erased before they grew beyond control. "They mock us with their silence," he hissed. "They're daring us to act." "Well, I will." He overrode the command chain, rerouting the fleet's targeting systems directly to his control. Inside the Dauntless, alarms flared. The strategist turned sharply. "They're locking weapons." The commander didn't hesitate. "Shields at maximum. Prepare for intercept protocols." In the vastness of space, every ship came alive at once. Energy fields shimmered to full strength, and a soft hum filled the void. The first shot fired wasn't large, a single plasma lance streaking toward the human lines, but its meaning was enormous. It crossed the boundary between restraint and war. The humans didn't fire back immediately. They let the beam hit the shield and disperse harmlessly into light. Then, slowly, the commander gave the order, "Deploy Echo Array." Across the human fleet, panels along the hulls unfolded like wings. Invisible pulses spread outward faster than light. Every council ship in range began to flicker. Their systems glitched, displays distorted, and engines faltered. It wasn't a weapon, it was a message. The humans had infiltrated their networks, seizing control of their communications. Across the council fleet, every screen and comm channel came alive with the same image. Earth, bright and unbroken, surrounded by a halo of light. Then, a voice echoed through every ship. "Calm, steady, unmistakably human. This is not war. This is remembrance. We warned you once. Do not mistake silence for surrender." The council crews froze, staring at their consoles in disbelief. Some officers hesitated, lowering their weapons. But on the Sovereign Light, Admiral Voran's rage only deepened. "They're mocking us! Fire everything!" His command spread through the fleet before anyone could stop it. Thousands of plasma bolts and missiles lit the void, converging toward the human line. It was a storm of destruction unlike anything seen before. The humans responded instantly. The Dauntless and her sister ships fired bursts of counter-energy, collapsing the incoming wave into harmless flashes of light. Still, the scale of the assault was overwhelming. The shields flared under the pressure, and the void shook with energy. Inside the Dauntless, the deck trembled as the crew worked in perfect synchronization. Sparks flew from the consoles, but no one panicked. The commander's voice cut through the chaos. "Hold formation! Do not return fire!" The strategist looked up, disbelief in her eyes. "If we don't strike back, they'll tear through us." He turned to her, his expression unreadable. "They need to see who we are. Not conquerors, not cowards, humans." For a moment, even as the ship rocked under the assault, everyone understood. They weren't fighting for dominance. They were fighting for meaning. Humanity's silence had always been its message, to prove that strength didn't have to scream, but the Council's fleet was relentless. As the battle raged, cracks began to appear in the shields. The energy readings spiked dangerously high. The strategist gritted her teeth. "If this keeps up, we'll lose containment." Before the commander could respond, a transmission came through, directly from Earth. The silver-haired leader's voice filled the command deck. "Commander, initiate Protocol Zenith." The commander froze. That order had never been used before. It was humanity's last resort, something even the crew barely understood. He nodded once, his tone steady. "Understood." All across the human fleet, systems began to shift. The ships moved into a precise formation, aligning perfectly with Earth's orbit. Energy surged between them, connecting into a vast network of light. From the surface of Earth, massive reactors came online, feeding power upward into the fleet. The space around the planet began to distort, bending and shimmering like liquid glass. The Council's ships halted, their sensors unable to process what was happening. Every reading went off the charts. It looked like the very fabric of space was folding. On the Sovereign Light, Admiral Voran shouted, "What are they doing?" But no one could answer. Inside the Dauntless, the commander watched the growing distortion with a grim expression. The strategist whispered, "If this continues, the entire system could—" "I know," he said quietly. Saren, standing beside him, could only stare in awe. "You're not trying to win. You're trying to stop them from ever starting this again." The commander didn't respond. His gaze remained on the stars beyond the viewport, the same stars that had once mocked Earth's silence. Now they seemed to tremble. The light intensified, spreading outward like the heartbeat of a living world. And as the Council's fleet began to break apart in confusion, the realization struck them all at once. Humanity hadn't been preparing for war. They had been preparing for something far greater. The void itself seemed to whisper as the distortion reached its peak. Every ship, every world, every mind felt it, a vibration deep in their bones. The edge of reality shuddered. Then everything went still, every engine cut off. Every weapon fell silent. The galaxy held its breath. And from the heart of the storm, Earth began to speak again. From the heart of the storm, Earth's voice rolled through the void like thunder wrapped in light. It wasn't loud, yet every ship, every station, and every living being across the fleet felt it resonate deep within. "We remember," the voice said. Simple words, but they carried the weight of centuries. The galaxy had mocked Earth's silence, and now that silence spoke in a way no one could ignore. The Council fleets froze, their captains staring helplessly as the fabric of space rippled before them. The distortion spread outward from Earth in waves, beautiful, terrifying, and alive. But this wasn't a weapon. The readings made no sense. It wasn't destroying. It was rewriting, bending light and energy into patterns the sensors couldn't decode. The humans on the Dauntless watched as the distortion shimmered, revealing what looked like countless shapes emerging from the glow. They were ships, but not of any known design. They were vast, almost organic, built of light and metal intertwined. The commander stepped closer to the viewport, his voice barely above a whisper. "Those aren't ours." The crew turned toward him in confusion. The strategist frowned. "Then who are they?" No one answered. The new ships hovered above Earth in perfect formation, silent, their surfaces reflecting the stars like mirrors. Every Council sensor tried to scan them, but the data came back empty. No power signatures, no life signs, just presence. The distortion that had filled the system began to stabilize, and for a fleeting moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then, without warning, the new fleet broadcasted a signal. It wasn't a language, not at first. It was a pulse, deep, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Across the command deck, the crew flinched as their implants synced with the frequency. Words began to form, translated through the ship's AI. "Children of Sol," the voice said. "You have awakened the memory." The strategist stared at the console, her hands trembling. This isn't human." Saren, the former Council diplomat, took a cautious step forward. "Then what is it?" The commander didn't answer immediately. He looked toward the image of Earth glowing through the viewport. "It's something older," he said. "Something we might have forgotten we were part of." Back in the Council chambers, chaos erupted. Reports poured in from every outpost near human space. The phenomenon wasn't limited to the Sol system anymore. Strange energy readings were appearing across the galaxy, in ancient ruins, forgotten moons, and derelict stations. Symbols that no one had ever deciphered began to activate, glowing with the same pulsing light seen around Earth. It was as if something buried in the fabric of reality itself was waking up. The Council's high members panicked. They demanded explanations, but their scientists had none. The readings didn't match any known technology, not even human. It was something beyond physics, beyond science, a pattern that existed everywhere, invisible until now. Some whispered that it was a weapon. Others said it was life itself. On Earth, deep within the Nexus, the silver-haired leader stood before the holographic projection of the new fleet. Her face was unreadable, but her voice was calm. "So it begins," she said quietly. Her aide turned toward her, panic in his voice. "What are they? Are they responding to our signal?" "They're not responding," she replied. "They're answering." He blinked in confusion. "Answering what?" The silence. Back aboard the Dauntless, the fleet held position, watching as the alien-like ships began to move. They drifted forward slowly, gracefully, until they surrounded both the human and Council fleets. Every ship, human or alien, was caught within the glowing field of light. The commander's comms officer turned pale. "They're scanning us." "All of us," the commander nodded. "Don't resist," Sir, they're inside our systems. I said don't resist. The scanning continued, and then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The lights dimmed, and for a long moment, there was only silence. Then the voice spoke again. Your kind remembers what others forgot. The silence of Saul was not hiding, it was waiting for the signal to return. The commander's breath caught. He understood now. The energy field, the strange activation, the dormant structures across the stars, it wasn't caused by humanity's weapon. It was triggered by it. Earth's awakening had acted like a key unlocking something ancient that had been lying beneath the surface of the galaxy all along. Saren looked horrified. You mean, this was never about the Council or your war? You woke something bigger, the commander's eyes hardened. No, he said quietly. We didn't wake it. We answered it. Meanwhile, in the Council's capital world, transmissions began to fail one by one. Power grids flickered, spaceports went dark, and navigational systems across dozens of fleets went offline. Ships drifted helplessly in the void as the strange pulse spread farther, syncing with every artificial intelligence and machine network in existence. The pattern was spreading, rewriting code, reconfiguring systems, harmonizing them to the same rhythm. Some thought it was an invasion. Others thought it was communication. Either way, the galaxy was no longer in control. Back in Seoul, the alien fleet's voice grew louder, echoing through every speaker and every channel. For eons, we watched the children of stars rise and fall. But only one world remained silent long enough to listen. The strategist turned to the commander, her expression torn between awe and fear. They're talking about us. He nodded. And they're not warning us. They're testing us! Before anyone could respond, a sharp alarm blared through the ship. The communications officer's face went pale. Sir, the Council fleet is breaking formation. Admiral Voran's flagship is charging weapons again. The commander's heart sank. They're going to fire on the new ships. In space, the Sovereign Light powered up every weapon it had. Voran's voice cracked through the comms, full of rage and pride. You can hide behind your tricks and your illusions, humans, but you can't threaten the galaxy with this madness. He gave the order to fire. The first barrage hit the light forms surrounding the fleets. The explosion was blinding, but when it cleared, the alien ships were untouched. The energy seemed to vanish into them, absorbed like rain into dry soil. The glow around them brightened, and then, for the first time, they responded. The nearest light ship extended what looked like an arm of energy toward the Sovereign Light. There was no explosion, no fire. Instead, the massive Council vessel simply stopped. Its engines went dark, its weapons fell silent, and all communication ceased. It drifted in the void, lifeless. Panic spread through the remaining Council fleets. Some tried to flee, others tried to surrender, but none of their systems responded. The alien ships had taken control of everything. Humanity's fleet remained untouched, though. Their systems were still under their command. The voice returned, softer now, almost like a whisper. You who silenced yourselves have been heard. You who mocked that silence have been judged. The commander looked out at the glowing forms encircling them. What are you? He asked quietly. The light pulsed once more. We are what remains of those who came before. We left behind our echoes to guide those who would listen. And now you must decide, will you lead the galaxy into unity, or end it? The words hung in the air like a weight. No one spoke. The humans had wanted to prove their strength, to remind the galaxy never to underestimate them again, but now they faced something far beyond their control. The light around Earth grew brighter, forming patterns that stretched outward like roots across space. The silver-haired leader on Earth looked up at the sky, her expression grave. They've chosen us, she murmured. But for what? Her aide asked. She turned to him slowly. To finish what they started, or to stop it. Above, in the cold silence of space, the alien fleet began to shift again, surrounding not just Earth but the entire solar system. Their energy signatures merged with the planet's orbiting stations, forming a vast lattice of light. The distortion returned, stronger than before. Every sensor, every radar, every heart across both fleets registered the same pulse, steady, ancient, unstoppable. The humans on the Dauntless watched as the stars themselves seemed to flicker. The commander clenched his fists, knowing the moment was near. Something was about to begin, something far greater than war. And for the first time, even humanity's silence couldn't hide the fear that crept through every soul in the galaxy. The Dauntless drifted in the silent sea of light. Every system hummed with strange energy, yet nothing felt hostile. The alien ships still surrounded Earth, their glow pulsing like a living heartbeat. The humans aboard watched in tense awe as the patterns spread across the solar system, connecting planets, moons, and stations in a web of radiant lines. For the first time, humanity wasn't sure if it had won or merely stepped into something it couldn't escape. The commander stood at the bridge, his eyes fixed on the holographic display. "Report! All systems stable," the technician said, voice trembling. "But sir, it's like they're using our satellites, our relays. The entire network is alive." The strategist frowned. "Alive?" "Yes," the technician whispered. "It's thinking." No one spoke. The word hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Humanity's greatest weapons, their communications, their defense grids, all moving together, pulsing to the same rhythm as the alien light. It wasn't control anymore. It was collaboration. On the Council side, panic still rippled through what remained of their fleets. Some ships had been completely disabled. Others floated adrift, unable to even send distress calls. Admiral Varan's vessel, the once mighty Sovereign Light, remained a cold husk. The Council chambers erupted in fury and fear as their communication lines filled with static. Their authority, their control, their confidence, gone. On Earth, the silver-haired leader watched as the sky shimmered. The auroras stretched across continents, glowing with symbols older than civilization itself. "It's beginning," she said quietly. Her aide turned to her. "Is this the awakening they spoke of?" "No," she said, her eyes reflecting the lights above. "This is the decision." Back aboard the Dauntless, the alien voice returned, clearer than before, as if it were now speaking directly to every living soul. "You have been given power, children of Soul. Power to reshape what was lost, or to destroy what remains. Choose." The commander's hands tightened around the console. "What do you mean, choose?" The light shimmered again, and suddenly the view before them changed. The ship's sensors couldn't explain it, but everyone could see it. Images appeared in the glow, like memories projected across space. They saw ancient worlds burning, civilizations collapsing under their own greed. They saw wars fought not between species, but between ideals. And finally, they saw Earth, a small blue world rising from its own ashes, alone but unbroken. The voice spoke again. "Once there were others like you. They reached beyond their stars, but they forgot balance. They sought control, not understanding. Their silence became extinction. You learned the silence, but will you learn restraint?" The strategist's voice broke the stillness. "They're testing us. They want to see if we'll use this power the same way the others did." The commander nodded slowly. "That's why they came now. Not to save us, but to judge if we're ready." At that moment, a sharp alarm cut through the bridge. The communication officer shouted, "Sir, multiple Council ships are reactivating. They're trying to retake control of the network." The commander turned sharply. "What?" "They're overriding their systems, forcing power surges through the alien interference. They're preparing to fire at Earth." The strategist's eyes widened. "If they attack while the lattice is active, it'll react," the commander finished grimly. "And no one knows how." Outside, energy crackled across the alien formations as the Council ships charged their weapons. The humans tried to hail them, but the channels were blocked. Panic erupted across the Dauntless's deck. "Sir, we have to stop them," the strategist urged. "If they fire, the backlash could destroy everything, us, them, even Earth." The commander hesitated only a moment before making the call. "Prep the fleet. Non-lethal disables only. We're not starting another war." The Dauntless led the charge. Human ships surged forward, engines flaring, firing electromagnetic pulses that disabled the Council vessels before they could release their energy. Each blast was precise, calculated, controlled. It wasn't destruction, it was discipline. Humanity fought not to conquer, but to contain. The alien light flickered brighter, as though watching. The voice echoed once more, softer now, like approval wrapped in thunder. You remember? But just when it seemed the danger was over, the twist came. A deep tremor ran through space itself. The lattice that had formed around the solar system began to twist. The light, once stable, started pulsing erratically. On the Dauntless, alarms flared again. "Sir, something's wrong!" "The energy field, it's collapsing inward." The commander turned to the hologram and froze. The web wasn't breaking apart, it was forming a singularity, a convergence point right above Earth. The strategist's voice shook. "They're not attacking. They're leaving," and she was right. The alien ships were beginning to fade, their forms dissolving into the light. One by one, they vanished into the growing vortex, until only their voices remained. "You have chosen well, but balance must be restored. The gift we leave is yours to protect, not to wield. Silence it again when the stars forget." Then, with a final pulse, they were gone. The vortex collapsed and the lattice dissolved. The stars returned, the space calm once more. But where the aliens had vanished, something remained. A new station in Earth's orbit, vast and gleaming, unlike anything humanity had ever built. It looked both human and alien, as if it had been crafted from the memory of both species. The commander exhaled slowly, eyes locked on the strange new construct. What did they leave us? The ship's AI flickered to life, its tone different, warmer, deeper. "A seed," it said. "Knowledge, technology, and the memory of what came before. But it's dormant, waiting for a time when silence must speak again." On the council worlds, confusion turned to uneasy quiet. Their fleets were crippled, their control shattered, yet no retaliation came. Humanity didn't press the advantage. They didn't threaten or boast. Instead, they reached out, with a signal of peace. The same silence that had once been mocked now became the symbol of strength. It was no longer the quiet of fear, but the calm of understanding. On Earth, the silver-haired leader stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing horizon. The sky shimmered faintly where the alien light had touched it. "So they've gone," her aide said softly. She nodded. "Gone, but watching. They've given us a choice and a warning. What do we do now?" She turned toward the stars. "We rebuild. But this time we listen." And as the Dauntless moved toward the stars, the signal pulsed again, soft, rhythmic, familiar. The heartbeat of something vast and ancient, waiting for humanity's next step. The silence was gone, but its echo remained, whispering through the dark. "Remember." The Dauntless cut through the darkness like a silent blade, engines burning faint blue against the endless black. The storm had passed, the alien light had faded, and yet the echo of it still pulsed somewhere deep in the ship's systems. No one spoke at first. The crew worked in near silence, each lost in their own thoughts about what had happened and what it all meant. Humanity had survived the Council's arrogance, faced the unknown, and been judged by something ancient, and somehow they had been spared. The commander stood by the viewport, watching Earth grow larger as they approached orbit. It looked peaceful again, untouched by the chaos that had filled the skies only hours ago. "Hard to believe," he murmured, "that all of this started because they mocked our silence." The strategist gave a tired smile. "Silence turned out to be the loudest answer of all," he nodded. "They wanted us to prove ourselves not through power, but through restraint." Her voice softened. "And we did." On the planet below, the world had changed. Across every continent, people had gathered in open fields, city squares, and mountaintops, looking up at the faint lattice of light still visible in the atmosphere. It wasn't bright anymore, just a ghostly shimmer that lingered like an afterimage. Scientists worked day and night, trying to decode the technology left behind in orbit, while philosophers and leaders debated what the message meant for humanity's future. The silver-haired leader stood before the United Assembly in Geneva, her voice calm but firm. "We stood alone when they mocked us," she said. "We remained silent when they doubted us. And when the time came, we did not answer with war or vengeance, but with understanding. The galaxy has seen what humanity truly is. Not conquerors, not monsters, but survivors who remember what silence means." Applause filled the hall, not with triumph, but with relief. For the first time in generations, humanity felt united. The fear that had divided nations was gone, replaced by something deeper, a shared memory of what they had witnessed among the stars. Back aboard the Dauntless, the commander's crew monitored the mysterious station left behind in orbit. The structure hovered above the planet like a guardian, its surface slowly dimming as if entering a long sleep. The AI's voice broke the quiet. "Energy readings are stabilizing. The station appears dormant." The commander asked, "Can we access it?" "Not yet," the AI replied. "The core is sealed behind a code, but it's transmitting a steady pulse, something like a heartbeat." The strategist looked at him. "A reminder?" He nodded slowly. "Or a promise." Days passed, and the galaxy began to adjust to the new order. The Council, stripped of its fleets and authority, could no longer dictate terms. Instead, they reached out to humanity, not as rulers but as equals. A historic transmission was sent to Earth. The Council's remaining representatives appeared on screen, their expressions a mixture of humility and exhaustion. "You have our respect," one of them said simply, "and our gratitude. We judged your silence as weakness. We see now that it was wisdom." The silver-haired leader responded with the same calm tone she had used since the beginning. "We were never silent out of fear. We were listening. Perhaps now the galaxy will start doing the same." Her words spread across every network, becoming a message that resonated far beyond politics or power. Listen before you speak. Understand before you act. Humanity's silence, once mocked, had become the foundation for something greater, a kind of peace born not from surrender, but from patience. On board the Dauntless, life slowly returned to routine. The crew cleaned up damage, recalibrated systems, and resumed patrol routes around the solar system. But the sense of awe never truly faded. Each time they looked toward the alien station, they felt the same mix of curiosity and reverence. Late one night, when most of the crew had gone to rest, the commander stood alone on the observation deck. The strategist joined him quietly, holding a tablet with new readings. "The pulse has changed," she said. "It's accelerating slightly. Almost like it's syncing with our planet's rotation." He smiled faintly. "Maybe it's just adapting to us. Or maybe it's waiting," she said softly. "For what?" Her eyes met his. "For us to be ready." Neither spoke after that. They stood in silence, watching the blue curve of Earth beneath them. Humanity had always dreamed of the stars, but now the stars were watching back. Weeks turned into months. Reconstruction spread across the galaxy as humanity helped repair damaged Council worlds. Where once there had been fear of Earth's hidden strength, now there was respect. The human fleet that had once been seen as a threat became a symbol of unity. Ships sent not to conquer, but to rebuild. The term "gods of steel," once used in fear, became a legend whispered with pride. But the galaxy hadn't forgotten the light that appeared before the Council fleets. Nor had humanity. Researchers from Earth worked alongside alien scientists to study the traces of the phenomenon. What they found was astonishing. Residual energy patterns buried deep within the laws of physics themselves, suggesting that the ancient beings hadn't just traveled the stars. They had woven themselves into the universe's structure. "Their silence wasn't death," one scientist said during a broadcast. "It was transformation. They became part of everything. It was a thought that changed how people looked at existence itself. The silence wasn't emptiness. It was connection." Then, one evening, months after the confrontation, a faint signal appeared again on deep space sensors. The same pulse the Dauntless had once detected from beyond the galactic rim. The commander, now stationed at the orbital outpost, watched the readings appear. The signal was faint, rhythmic, and familiar. He turned to the strategist. "Same pattern?" She nodded. "Exact match." The crew exchanged uneasy looks. "Do we respond?" someone asked. The commander hesitated. The temptation was there, to reach out, to see what lay beyond. But he remembered the voice of the aliens, their warning about balance, their faith that humanity would know when to speak and when to listen. He took a slow breath. "No, not yet." The strategist smiled knowingly. "Silence again?" "Silence," he confirmed, "until we understand what it's saying." The signal continued to pulse, steady and patient, as if waiting for humanity's answer. But this time there was no fear. The crew watched the display quietly, realizing that not every mystery had to be solved. Not every call had to be answered right away. On Earth, the night sky shimmered faintly, and children looked up at the stars that had once terrified their ancestors. Now they saw beauty instead of danger. The world had changed, not through domination, but through wisdom born from silence. In the end, humanity's warships didn't bring destruction. They brought understanding. The galaxy learned that true strength wasn't in how loud one could roar, but in the courage to stay silent when everyone else shouted. As the Dauntless drifted through the calm void, the commander looked out one last time at the stars and whispered almost to himself, "Maybe that's what they were waiting for all along." The strategist smiled beside him. "For us to listen." The ship's engines glowed softly, a quiet heartbeat in the vast silence of space. And somewhere, far beyond the edge of the galaxy, the signal pulsed once more, steady, patient, eternal. The silence of Earth had spoken, and this time the universe was listening.